India. Yeah, I was sharing that I've been in Ananda Sangha, India now for exactly 20 years. It was 2006 when I read the autobiography of a yogi, met Swami Kriyananda ji in New Delhi. He was launching the Bhagavad Gita, and has been just a wonderful, wonderful journey, as all of us can say, looking back on when Master found us, we found Master, and here we are. So I thought very quickly, the way I'm seeing you all in a sequence on the screen, I'll invite you one by one. And if people can share, because this book study of autobiography of a yogi, we'll go through it, friends, through the entire book. And we'll take it forward. Last week we discussed one chapter every week is what everybody felt comfortable reading. But then, as and when you can join in, please do. But there are 48 chapters, so it's going to be more or less, including some holidays, some travel, and unforeseen things that may come. More or less, a year, slightly over a year, is what our journey is going to be. So, anyway, I just thought it'll be nice if we make more friends as we keep doing this book study. For me, especially, it's a very rewarding experience to always get to see our Guru Bhais in different countries. Actually, very quickly, I'll also mention part of the reason, a big part of the reason I'm doing this book study is I had mentioned this last week, but most of you were not there. Last week, I mentioned that I'm doing this book study because Jyotish and Devi ji, our worldwide directors, they told us, about 1 year ago, to form a team in India. Now, in the work in India is about 23 years old. And they told us that we have 13 city centers, we have about 9 to 10 meditation groups, we have online communities in the languages of English, of course, but also Hindi and in other regional languages, because India is like a mini Europe. It has its own, or not mini, maybe it has more languages than Europe, I don't know. But certainly we have to cater to that a lot. Every state has its own language and such. So anyway, we are doing wonderfully well with that outreach in India. But then over the last, especially 1 decade, a lot of outreach has happened in China, Russia. Recently, it started in Japan. Of course, Australia. In the pandemic, we've been doing more classes with Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Singapore, Malaysia, Dubai. So these are 9 countries, to be specific, where very directly we do outreach from India. So Jyotish and Deviji asked me if I would coordinate the activities of outreach in these countries. So that's what I do in the last 1 year. That's what I've been trying to do. I've gotten in touch with the leaders in these places, then the meditation groups and leaders. Then I get to meet their teams and then see where can we help one another. Again, very quickly, it could be classes like we are doing right now. It could be promotions. It could be a legal advice. It could be fundraising. Some are meditation groups, some are online communities. Some of these places already have communities with actual land and such, and they are planning to take their next step. So it's just wonderful. Instead of us feeling like there are 10 different expressions of the work, which is wonderful, but doing it all by themselves, Jyotish and Devi had the thought that why not in this part of the world? Everybody feels that, hey, let's get to know each other, and this is what I am doing, this is what you are doing. And also every year now, starting last year, we do get an opportunity to meet Jyotish and Devi when they come to their annual visit in India. This year also it will be happening in October. So anyway, the thought is that for us, at least online, we can start meeting each other, and then as and when life and circumstances bring us to each other's countries and places, we get to meet our friends and family members in those places. So anyway, with that, that's the reason why I am showing up, you might say, online in Australia, doing this book study for you all. And it's really, like I said, it's a very nice experience for me. So forgive me for taking too much time, but then quickly, Bhakti, I see you next on my screen. Do you want to share where you're coming from and what do you do? How are you helping with this? Brahmacharini Bhakti. Actually, since I said Bhakti, Bhakti should come, and then Bhakti from Russia will come next. Yes, Bhakti, please.
I'm also Brahmachari Bhakti.
Hey, how nice. I didn't know that. My goodness.
And so I think everyone here knows, I'm in New South Wales, in the Southern Highlands, south of Sydney, and um, um, I first read the autobiography maybe 30 years ago, and it was not in association with Ananda, but I had a spiritual mentor in Australia, and he was a disciple through SRF, Self Realization Fellowship, and I studied with him for a number of years. And the most direct that he ever was in saying, you should read this was um, um, what was it? I'm trying to think the way that he expressed it. Um, I think he just said you might enjoy it. He always gave credit to Master. Master's photos and our guru's photos were all around, but he was never pushing it. It wasn't his it wasn't his mission to create disciples, or to advertise the work. He was working in other ways, but he was always acknowledging his source. Um, and I found my way to Ananda. But I remember, I've got the book in my hand now. I remember walking down my hallway, holding the book and reading it, not this actual copy, but reading it as I was walking, and go,
Hmm.
wow, 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 and just knowing that what I was reading was the truth, because it had a quality that couldn't be explained any other way. But it was beyond my capacity or my knowledge or my understanding. And I realized very quickly that I had to mentally create a shelf in the back of my mind where I could put these things that I didn't understand. I wasn't dismissing them, but I was putting them aside until I could understand. But I was just engrossed in the AY from that first time. Mm.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I think we can all relate to that. Wow, 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 as we read the book.
Yeah.
Now I see Bhakti Russia on my screen. So, Bhakti, would you like to come on?
Okay, namaste again. So yeah, I came to Ananda in 2019 here in Moscow Center. Currently, I'm again living in Moscow Center. But 2.5 years I served in Pune in India. Yeah, it was the blessing time for me and a lot of good things. Yeah, the same time I'm serving for another publication in India still, and for the outreach, I'm helping a DJD with some communication, like small assistant. Yeah, so that, and of course, serving for Ananda Russia and weekend days. So that is about me.
Yeah, soon we'll be having 2 full weeks of retreats, one in North Russia,
Yeah,
close to Moscow, one in South, close to the Black Sea. And
yeah,
Bhakti has been coordinating the activities for those two in-person
yeah.
retreats. We
We are
have full,
very, very waiting and exciting at DJD to see.
yeah, they are booked for full capacity in both those places. Okay, I'm seeing Jonathan next. Jonathan?
Oh, hello to the people that I don't know. I know quite a few people here, which is great. I'm not quite sure where to start with this one. Um, with reference to autobiography of a yogi, that wasn't what I found initially. It's something that I ended up listening to. Audiobooks seem to be that seem to work really well for me. And really, I only purchased the book probably about maybe about 4 or 5 months ago. I found that I got to a point where listening to it was great, but I really needed a hard copy that I could get into. And in some ways, be able to flick back to areas that I really liked, because with an audiobook, it's really difficult to work out where everything is. But I still listen to it frequently in the car. And in terms of finding this path or a spiritual path, I guess my way in isn't unusual, but I was in a really dark place in 2014, and I was suicidal, and I didn't obviously take my life or attempt to take my life. But at that time, I remember lying in bed one night and I was just looking at Instagram and reel after reel after reel. And all of a sudden, I saw these two people in this beautiful blue, and it was Swami Kriyananda and it was Asha. And I just remember seeing them, and I was just, the energy in the room was just amazing. And I'd been searching probably all of my life for people like that, but I'd never met anyone like that, and I'd never seen anything like that. And as soon as the reel played out, it disappeared, and I searched and searched and searched
Oh,
for these people, and I couldn't find them. I went on a independent recovery course myself, in terms of, surrounded myself with a medical team and supportive friends, and got into exercise and got my life back on track. And then I ended up experiencing, in some ways, a similar thing in 2024 at the end of a relationship that really shattered me. And I was suicidal again, but I immediately took that off the table. And as soon as I took that off the table, in terms of, Jonathan, you're never to think about this ever again, a friend sent me a reel, yet again, Instagram, and it was Asha. And I
oh,
recognized her. And I've said this to a few people. I wouldn't have paid any attention whatsoever if it had been a man. I really wouldn't have, but I really desperately needed a woman, and the love of Divine Mother, really. That's what I've learned. And so I just watched her and watched her and watched her. And then I found through her Swami Kriyananda, and realized that it was both of them. And wow, I'd finally found these two people. Then I was in tears for a long time because I'd found out that he'd passed away or moved on. But I just immersed myself into everything connected to Ananda. I signed up through the United States and did the first step and the second step. And then I was encouraged to plug into the Australian group. And in some ways, it's been history. But I'll name up, the pendulum for me has swung really hard, backwards and forwards, material world, spiritual world. And there's been a lot of Dharma, karmic closure that I've had to work through over the last year and a half. And what I realized at the beginning of this year, when I'd completed all of the courses and I was ready to do career initiation, my meditation had gone slightly pear-shaped, and I felt that I could lie, but I don't do things by halves. And so I decided to postpone it. But what I realized in that sort of moment, making that decision, was I was forced onto the path, which is a blessing, but I was now at a point where I actually had to make a conscious decision myself to
mm.
to remain on the path and to continue forward. And that's exactly what I've been doing over the last couple of months. And that's where I am again now. And I feel that there's been a lot of closure and a lot of doors stuff that I had to deal with before I could actually really commit. And I'm at a point now where I'm happily committing freely using my own free will. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing, Jonathan. While you were sharing, this thought came that on one level, we've gathered today and we will discuss the autobiography of a yogi. But it's also nice to know each other's autobiography a little bit, that how the soul has gone through a certain journey. And this was so moving, the law of magnetism of how this thing happened in your life twice and you saw the same people and how they came back and here you are. And such an, Swami used to often remind us two things. He was a very unique disciple in the sense he saw these two aspects of Master. He said, Master has come for the world. He has done that in the past. Swami would talk about Master's past lives and how the impact they made worldwide on cultures, civilizations. At the same time, he would say, remember, He came for you and me. Just because God is infinite and Master is so far reaching in his outreach, does not mean that he has forgotten the individuals in each person's life, just like you were sharing, how that magnetism and love of God is uniquely expressed, is actually maybe the more moving part. And then you multiply that by tens of thousands or millions in time, and you realize the power avatars bring. So thank you for sharing. It was very beautiful to hear that. Very quickly, which city are you coming in from? Where are you coming in from?
I'm in Brisbane,
Brisbane.
Queensland. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes. Okay. John, Lindsay, would you like to share? I'm seeing you next on the screen. You'll have to unmute.
Yep, got it. So, a few of you know most of my story, so I'll try and keep it short. Um, I think the best way I can describe it is I've suffered from what I call the holy neurosis for most of my life, and followed many paths over different times. Most of them Christian or related to Christianity, but Buddhism obviously at some stage and so on. Usually I've found, well, it's often been a toss-up whether I was not able to continue with that path or whether the path had something in it that I felt justified in leaving. But I've had this copy of the AY, which you can't see, but doesn't matter, uh, on my bookshelf for probably about 40 years, just to scare the hell out of some of you. And I always thought that was just too big and too thick. I knew I had to read it someday. And that day finally arrived about 5 or 6 years ago when I felt I had the time. And you know how these things happen, they don't happen by chance. Because if I'd read it any stage before then, I probably would have thought, well, I mean, most of what's in there, a lot of the supernatural experiences and so on weren't enormously unfamiliar to me from other experience and other reading. But yeah, any earlier, and I'd have read it and thought, well, that's great, and what do I do? But
Right.
now, of course, we've got the web, and so I thought, well, there must be something going on the web. So I searched on the web and found SRF, and didn't really like that terribly much. It seemed very similar to a Gnostic path that I'd been on, which was very rigid and declamatory and so on. And I finally found Ananda and looked at a few YouTubes with Nayaswami Maria and Asha and others, and thought that they've they've told me more, or put it this way, they shown me in just a few programs as much as I'd learned about meditation over 40 or 50 years. So I thought this sounds pretty good. So
Oh,
as you know, Adita, I finally went to the village to do karma yoga for a month, because I've always believed by their um, what is it? How shall you know them? Um, and just to prove to myself that the people who've been practicing this were as saintly as they seem to be. So here I am.
beautiful. How beautiful. And is there where we met? I mean, I know we met at the village, but did we meet in that Karma Yoga circle, weekly satsang once?
Uh, Yes, I remember speaking to you
Yeah,
mostly actually in the bookshop when you were about to leave this was in April, I think a couple of years ago.
right.
You were
Right.
about to leave to go home and you were buying a lot of presents for the family.
Yes, yes, I remember that.
And just finishing, I live in Brisbane and Jonathan and I know each other.
Beautiful. How nice to have each other's company. Okay, so just for a change, how about we jump into the book and then come back to know Urmila? Yes, Bhakti. Yeah. Okay, so how about we do a little, go into the book a little bit and then come back to talk to Dawn and Satya and then Urmila. Does that sound okay? Okay, everybody. So last week, when you're starting something new, there are all sorts of learnings and things you experience. So I remember I had a different copy of the autobiography. It was actually a different size. And so because of that, our pages were getting mismatched. I was quoting some page and people were somewhere else. So anyway, we all decided to follow this one. And Bhakti, I believe you had posted a link of the same. So today, if somebody has a different version, you're welcome to keep it. But if we all follow this one, then it's easier. And we had gone through most of chapter one last week. And we had said, okay, let's leave it at that. We had come to the end of the time. And we thought we could finish if there are any thoughts from chapter one. And then we had assigned that we read chapter two. Now, again, because you were not there, maybe you didn't know of any of this. So just fine. But I have marked a few things. But before I go ahead, I want to ask Bhakti, both the Bhaktis, and anybody who's read anything to want to share something. Do you guys want to start? Yeah, and just unmute friends and just go for it.
I forgot to read, so like Jonathan, I was listening to the AY on Audible this afternoon, and unfortunately I can't remember or point out from the text specific examples, but just listening to chapter one on repeat this afternoon, and it occurred to me that within that chapter, I mean, there's so many angles that you can pick it up from, but not only was he introducing his parents and his family, but he was introducing examples of spiritual practice in the family life,
Right.
and spiritual principles such as in relation to, for example, money and relationships and things like that. And it just struck me in for some reason more than other things I've picked up at other times. Yeah, so I know that's quite vague, but and that's all I can share at the
Sure.
minute.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Bhakti. That's very well put. That Master is talking about his father, his mother, his older sister, and then, of course, Master, we was discussing last week, Master is not shying away in this book. Right in the second paragraph of the first chapter, he's declaring how he remembers his past lives, even as an infant. The following page, again in two paragraphs, he's sharing again that he remembered many other details of his past lives as a Himalayan yogi now. Then he says, I'm not unique. There are many saints across religions and cultures and history who has had similar remembrances. So again, for me, it was amazing that 1946, when he launched this book, he was like Kriyanandaji said, this book would become the most important book of our path. It's a scripture in its own right. It's a modern scripture where Master has condensed so many ancient Indian scriptures and presented it from a personal experience point of view. That absolutely, it's like his testimony that these things are true. This was my own experience. And of course, he makes the book very universal also. So yeah, right there, even as much as he's introducing his family, he's not holding back some very high truths in that chapter. Jonathan, or John, you want to share? You unmuted.
Yeah, I was just thinking partly what Bhakti was saying, but also watching the video today of last week, and coming back to it in that a sort of slightly more objective way, how really it's almost a microcosm of the whole book. The way, I mean, there's practically nothing in there that is not a bit of a preparation for what's to come. I mean, the very, very first sentence, and then some information, as you've said, about the family, showing how a family can live a spiritual life, but also and the reincarnation bit, but also the way his father came to this path, which in itself is somewhat miraculous. I mean,
Totally.
those who've never come across this sort of thing before, it's miraculous. It's sort of, your toes being dipped in the water, you're getting prepared for what's to come.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then he goes on even, to jump in the deep end. He talks about Kriya Yoga, and the experience with Lahiri and his own power with the boil that he started on his arm,
Mm.
and I found it even interesting that I couldn't remember what happened, um, but the boil on his arm was removed surgically. He didn't say that he was able to create the boil, but also got rid of the boil. That might not have been his choice, but never mind. But yeah, there was just so much that was in there, and when you've read the whole book, you can see how seeds have been sown.
True. Thank you. Absolutely. It's like, Master was like, he's giving a very good trailer to the movie in the first chapter, like you
Mm.
said, of what's to come. Thank
Mm.
you.
And can I, sorry, I've just, my
Please.
eyes have just fallen on something else I've got to mention.
Yeah.
Because something I didn't say before, well, I did hint on it before, that most of my spiritual travels have been along Christian lines. And obviously I've got very much an Anglo-Saxon background.
Mm.
Um, that footnote with the quote from Tennyson blew
Yes,
me
we read that
blew me
last week,
away.
but
One of
please
my
go for it.
all-time favorite poets, for a lot of reasons, and for him to be quoting that in the first chapter, I said, "Oh,
Yes. You like this, John. Last week when we were discussing chapter one, we spoke of that footnote. And it's very
yes,
interesting that in that footnote, Master, of course, for friends who may not have read, in short, Master is saying that Tennyson, as a child, understood that he could go into very deep states of almost out of body experience and super consciousness simply by repeating his own name, Tennyson, 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 Tennyson. And that reminded me as I was preparing last week that that's the technique that Master gives us, the technique of japa, that simply repeating a holy name, a positive word like Om Guru or Om or joy, joy, joy. And that for many paths in India, many traditions in India, that is the only and the supreme technique. And it is given in our lessons in meditation book also that we receive when we first learn how to meditate. The book by Jyotish Ji, chapter 7 has a mention of it. But Jyotish Ji himself says that it's a very powerful technique in itself. So yeah, Master is bringing universality right there by including Tennyson and how he went into the state of superconsciousness through such a simple technique.
mm,
Anyone else?
I guess something that's become really apparent to me is like we know how important it is in terms of those foundational years for a child. And he was in terms of context as everything, environments are everything. He was in the perfect environment to launch his life. I mean, his mother essentially was like a divine mother. He had a very supportive father. Um, not only was it allowed, it was fostered. And I just thought that that was beautiful and obviously very necessary. And yeah, powerful, really powerful in terms of launching his life.
That's a remarkable point, Jonathan. This is amazing because, it makes me think, for example, Swamiji has a book, Expansive Marriage. And we often gift it to, over the years, I have found myself gifting that book to a devotee who comes up and says, hey, I'm going to get married, or we are going to get married. And so we gift them that book, and oh, you may enjoy reading this. But it just makes me think that part of parenting classes, many a times when we do classes on education or especially parenting, it's more about how to, work with your child, and then we bring the spiritual side. But it never struck me what you just said, that how we could perhaps encourage parents and even couples who are planning to get married with the thought of having children, that why not think of creating the magnetism of an environment where a saintly soul may come, and master gives techniques for that, but then you could almost provide a temple ashram like atmosphere right there at home, and the child blossoms into somebody like Yogananda or Kriyananda ji's life was very similar. His mother, being such a high-minded soul, later told him that throughout her pregnancy, she kept repeating, Lord, this my firstborn I give to thee. That such beautiful practices, and it's like a japa. You're praying to the Lord, you're offering it to the Lord, and now the results are for everybody to see. So thank you. That's a very beautiful point. Okay. So I'll add a little, or Dawn, you want to share?
If I may add into this as well, just going through the chapter and catching up, playing a bit of catch up for the book study. So that is what it is. But just pulling a chapter out, I mean, pulling a paragraph out there that I'd like to just paraphrase and then reflect on. His picture had a surpassing influence over my life. As I grew, I thought of the master grew with me. In meditation, I would often see his photographic image emerge from its small frame and take a living form and sit with me. When I attempted to touch the feet of his luminous body, it would change and become the picture. As childhood slipped into boyhood, I found Lahiri Mahashaya transformed in my mind from a little image cribbled in a frame to a living, enlightening presence. So I read that, and just with just the fresh eyes in that moment, and it really is a fantastic example of a calling and nearly setting the table for all of the devotees in the decades and the centuries to come. They can read that chapter and go, Master had photos of his masters, and he could connect, and he's showing us that, I've got my photo of Master on the wall there, and if I practice the presence of Master, then he does become more luminous, he does become brighter, and we attune, and I really get that in that paragraph, how that was so strong for him. And I guess that sort of adds into what we've been reflecting there, that there's so much in this first chapter that's really, he's just going straight for it. He's doubling down on what this is about. So
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing. I was mentioning also last week that one of the things I'm doing in this rereading of the autobiography is just, writing the word T, which for me is like a teaching or technique, wherever I'm finding one. And Dawn, just what you shared, is a technique too, that we all have a picture. And then how can we commune so deeply with that picture, as you're saying, that it comes, not only is the picture blessing us, but master may come out of it. And so it's just like, it's like Lahiri Mahashaya said, if you think of it as a picture, that's what it stays. But if you think of it as me, then it can bestow divine protection. So thank you for picking up something so simple, but yeah, what a profound experience master drew out of that. Beautiful. Another technique that way, which we had discussed last week, and I won't go in more detail, I just mention it, is on page 11, the very last line. Master is writing, what is behind the darkness of closed eyes? This probing thought came powerfully into my mind. And then he goes on to describe the experience that came from that. Saints came in that experience, then the light comes. He says, what is this light? It says, I am Ishvara, I am God. But that simple line, what is behind the darkness of closed eyes? That many a times in our meditation teacher training or interaction with teachers, this is brought up. I remember especially Naya Swami Jaya enjoys guiding people into a meditation with this line a lot, that let's sit upright, let's close our eyes, watch the breath. Then he says, now gaze at the point between the two eyebrows. And if you see a light, focus on that light. Or say, if you're seeing darkness, ask the question, as Master did, what is behind the darkness of closed eyes? And in Christmas meditation also, it's very important for us because we often play Master's chant, oh my cloud-colored Christ, come. Oh, that in the beginning, Master says it looks like a cloud. There was like, what is there to see? But he says, just behind that cloud is God. And he's waiting for us to stay there longer, keep the gaze uplifted, call him over there. So again, a very simple thing that all of us experience. We close our eyes, we see some darkness, okay? But very rarely do we dig deeply enough. Actually, it reminds me another beautiful thing Swami used to repeat quite often towards the end of his life. And he used to say, imagine, he said, you and I are like people on a big frozen lake. And he said, we are all trying to get to the water. And he said, you can jump, you can push, and you can get huge machinery. But he said that doesn't make a dent on the lake. But if you take a little drill and you drill in one spot, you can reach the water and be one with the lake. And then he used to say, this is that point. He said, focus at the spiritual eye. And he says, by being here, you get past the ego in time, you become a Jivan Mukta. Once you're a Jivan Mukta, then you burn your past karma, you become a Param Mukta, and then there's no return from that state. So it's like, again, how these high teachings are simplified, that don't give up, just focus here, Master is saying. So wanted to mention that line. Okay, anything else from the first chapter, or we could then go into chapter 2? All right. I'll mention just one or two things from chapter 2. Let me see. Yeah, here's the story, right there in the beginning, mother's death and the amulet is chapter 2. And Master is talking about how he gets this premonition, I believe it's a vision or a dream. And he sees that mother is going to leave her body. She actually tells him, come. And, some years ago, actually 10 years ago, Naya Swami and I were attending the Kumbh Mela in India, in Ujjain city. And there was a film festival happening there. We were invited to show the movie The Answer based on Swami's life and time with Master. To make a long story short, one of the spiritual films shown over there was a documentary. The parents who had made the documentary had come, and the documentary was called Helmet, as in the helmet. And it was made for awareness to wear helmets, it's not very common in India. You don't see people wearing a helmet that often. And there are many road traffic accidents that happen, unfortunately, because of that. And this couple had lost their son in an accident like that. Anyway, what had really happened was they would speak to their child. He was in Pune city where I'm speaking from. He was in college, this boy. His parents were in another city. They would speak at dinner time every day. So they had their daily conversation. And at 1:30 in the night, somehow the mom, wakes up and she's very anxious and she tells her husband, I want to let's call our son. I want to talk to him. And he says, what's the matter? And she says, I think he's not well and let's call him. Well, they call, he's not answering. And her husband says, that, look, he must be sleeping. She says, no, call his friends. Well, they call the friend, and the friend was crying. And she says, why are you crying? I want to talk to my son. And he basically said, Auntie, I'm sorry, your son has passed away just now. I'm standing by his body. We were all out for a drive, right? He had an accident and he's dead. Now, the question was, of course, they were generating awareness about helmets and such. But for me, the question also was, how did she know in the middle of her sleep? And Swami used to often say, he said, men have I'm a very good example that way. He said, men have a rectangular forehead, and often these frontal, you might say, lobes, which he said are more the sign of intellect or such. And he said, women have a rounded forehead, he said they represent more like feeling. He would speak of the breast and the rounded forehead. He said they represent feeling. And he said reason and feeling have to be in balance in each one of us. That, he said, is the prime reason for marrying. It's like bringing a balance to one another. Anyway, Swami would say women, because they come primarily from feeling, that's their prime nature, their intuition is usually on the higher side. So, isn't that interesting that the child perhaps was thinking of his mother or, suffering in some way, but the mother tuned into that in her sleep and she was reaching out. Just like sometimes we may not hear from Divine Mother, but Swami used to say, we've come from her. She is in each one of us. She's listening to you. She's very close to you. Whether you get a response or not, don't stop calling to her. So I thought this was also a beautiful example how Master just could feel something and very clearly spelled it out to his father, who, Swami writes, brought his reason forth. And he said, well, you're overthinking, don't worry, we'll deal with it tomorrow. And of course, Master was right in this case. So anyway, when we get a feeling like that, Swami says, give it a test. Don't jump off a cliff, but try it, take a step forward and see where it leads you. Any thoughts? Anything else, friends, you'd like to add? Now, there's another beautiful line Master Swami does add after his mother's passing. He said, as his father changed, as he played both now the mother and father, he says, with calm, this is, by the way, page 17, last paragraph, second last line. And again, somebody was sharing how to lead in a family. Very simple statement. Swami says, with calmness and insight, he solved the various family problems. I thought that was just so sweet. It's such a simple thing. It's an obvious role, but so many times, I don't know, we come on the spiritual path and we somehow still do struggle with the day to day. And through Master's father's example, he's just saying that, okay, he gave us love, he played the role, with calmness and insight, he solved the various family problems. Then after office hours, he retired like a hermit, and on, Master writes. Okay, anybody else, friends? We have about 10 minutes. So I'll pick a few more lines. One is the last line from the previous chapter, the second last paragraph, page 14, second last paragraph. Yogananda ji writes, this is the story of the kite. He says, I continued my prayers with a crescendo intensity. And then we know the second kite also comes his way. Then I want to bring our awareness to page 17, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. First paragraph, first of all. First paragraph. Second last line. Intense pangs of longing for God assailed me. I felt powerfully drawn to the Himalayas. Then a few paragraphs down, Master says, chatting one morning with Dwarka, I felt a love for God descending with avalanchic force. Then, of course, Master's page 19, third paragraph, fourth paragraph, Master's brother is saying, that I didn't want to tell you about this amulet and all that. Then he says, my fear was to inflame your desire to leave home. But in any case, you are bristling with divine ardor. Anyway, those 3, 4 lines I was reading, just as Swami used to say, that to show and to remember how much love Master had for God. That Master's relatives told Swamiji when Swami Kriyanandaji came to India in 1958. He went to Master's home, of course, and he stayed in Kolkata for actually 4 years. And so he was visiting, they were showing him around, and they showed a picture where Master was a little boy, his sister was having him. And then Master's relatives said, it's amazing that when Yogananda was still a baby, his older sister was taking him around the house. And as we do, you're teaching the child different things, mama, baba, father, or water and fan and simple things like that. And they came to a picture of Kali, Mother Kali, and she said, Ma, which is mother. She said, Ma. And she said it was so surprising that Master, though still a baby, almost leapt out of her arms. And then she held him back, and he started weeping, his tears rolling down his cheeks, that he could have such a divine memory as a little child, baby, that he has come from God and he must go back to him. That when that, Swami used to say, when that is the foundation of our life, when we can become once again, we don't have to become childish, Swami used to say. But he said we must be childlike. Swami himself used to say that very few people know. I believe he said it to Maria, one time. Very few people know that all I am is a little boy of Divine Mother. I'm a little child of Divine Mother. She asks Master and Swami and the likes to do greater works, you may say. So you and I look at them in like they are giants, they are spiritual giants. But part of being a spiritual giant, Swami used to say, is to be childlike. He says God is childlike. So when you're childlike, it's not your power that is making you great. You are relying completely on your father, your mother, who is God, and they flow through you. They take you by the hand, they guide you. But when you say, well, now that I'm grown up, I'd like to do things myself, then God says, okay. Or like parents also say, well, okay, Aditya, if you need us, you know where to call, you know who to call, but go forth. So Swami used to say, be independent, be strong, but never forget where your power comes from. So having that devotion and remembrance of God in the midst of everything, is something again Master is teaching us over here. He's again not shy. Remember, he launched this book in the West first, in America, and he's going for it with past lives. He's going ahead with devotion, which Master's assistants would tell him, sir, that's not the prime quality to lead with. And Master would listen to advice, but he was like, this is how I'm going to share my message. Okay. Then, of course, there's this beautiful line for you and me, last line of page 19. I believe we all can agree. Lahiri Mahashaya, after baptizing Yogananda ji as an infant on his forehead, he says, little mother, thy son will be a yogi. As a spiritual engine, he will carry many souls to God's kingdom. And looking at our screen, I was feeling like, yeah, here's a little compartment of souls sitting in one of those compartments of the train that Master is chugging along, taking all of us back to God. Okay, I'll come back to our friends Dawn and Satya, and then Urmila. If you'll share a little bit about where you're from and how you're doing.
Yeah. I'm Dawn, and we live in Tasmania, which is part of Australia. It's an island off the south, in case you don't know the geography. But yeah, for me, I've been on a path searching for a long time. I've only found Ananda, Australia, for the last year and a half. The book itself, I think I was in my 20s when you and I first met, and I read it, and it resonated on some level. I don't think I was quite ready for it fully, and then recently come back to it and the teachings, and it's just been like, yeah, wow, this is right. The magnetism, and so yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and yeah, that's where I am now.
Beautiful. Forgive me, I was calling our friend Satya Dawn so far, and I was like, something is off. It's like your intuition tells you, think more deeply. And I'm like, Dawn, Dawn. It's like, of course, she's Dawn. Yeah, but such it is. But thank you, thank you. That's a beautiful name, Dawn. And Satya?
So picked up master's book when about 20 years ago, being a late teen, early 20s at some point there. And at the same time, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And like just gobbled that up, like just reread, read again, like looked at all and at that age it was like, oh, all of these spiritual powers, right? Like it's the third parter in the Yoga Sutras about all of these amazing things that we can. That was a big part of the draw in my younger mind, and but it also had an attraction of like, wow, like there's something about this that I thirst for and I hunger for, and being a young baby coming into this world again, like I've realized over the decades of my life that that I really feel like I'm done. I've been here enough times, and it's like, I'm really wanting to. I can feel that fuel with that, and feeling. And I didn't at the time as a kid at that point. I read the book and kept the book, and I've still got the Yoga Sutras, the original, in its beautiful tattered form, which is great. And then just for some reason, wanted to enjoy the merry-go-round of life. So I had for a part of this lifetime. So I got a job and, did a lot of things that we do as earthly beings and as solely earthly beings, and enjoying the world and all of those things. And then just I'm a psychologist, so I've always been interested in the mind and made it a career, and have a healthy practice of yoga that I have for about the last 13 years. And I got to the point, in mid 2024, and it's like there's got to be. I feel like I need a little bit more, and I'm not sure what. And I thought, I've just got to start meditating again. I just want to go deeper in some way, but I wasn't sure what that was. And then Master popped into my head again, and it was like the first time for a long time. I thought, of course, I've got to pick up Master's book again. And at the same time, that's when I found Ananda Australia and commenced meditating and doing in 2024 doing the 4 paths to Kriya. And I've just received Kriya just in New Zealand. So what a blessing that is as well, and really feel like the depth within that. And it feels again like it feels like this is just the beginning nearly, and it's so exciting in that respect. And coming back to Master's book, just to add into here that I wanted the book, and I thought, you know what, I just put it out there, right? And it's nearly like cooperative obedience. I just put it out there, and Master's sort of in a way, okay, go for it. You get creative. How are you going to get this? And it was nearly like the moment I got out of the way and just sort of like started making decisions on that day, things unfolded really beautifully. So Dawn and our daughter Jara, they were going into town. I wouldn't have normally gone in on that day, but I thought, I'm just going to go in, and I had Master's book in the back of my head, and that was my intention. And the 3 of us went into the city of Hobart, and And we were walking and we were walking along, and I'd been into a bookstore and I couldn't find it, like a more of a mainstream bookstore, and it was a bit annoying. I think but we walked past this sort of trinket shop, and Dawn wanted to go in there, and Jara, and I thought, went in there not even imagining or thinking that it was going to be in there, and then low on the back shelf was actually this version of it, and it was the original 1946 version, and there was one copy left. And the Bhagavad Gita, as explained by Swamiji, was there as well. So it was like off the shelf, and I went to the counter with the shopkeeper, and I just said, you know what, like I was, I was not afraid to say it. I've just led here like this, this book's found me, and just like I've found the book. And she smiled at me with a twinkle, and she got it, absolutely got it. And it was in that moment, it was of sharing an intuitive moment that was really beautiful between us, the shopkeeper and myself. But anyway, that's the story about the book. And yeah, I feel like that's it. I want to respect time, so that's really it's been a blessing and a joy to have recommenced on this path together, and with all of our increasing family, and in this beautiful Sangha that we've got, and it's just so real, safe, and beautiful. So just so blessed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So beautiful again. Thank you. Urmila?
Yes. So I did meet a few of the people here in my recent trip to New Zealand. So hi back, John, Don, and Satya. Even Shweta, in fact, was my roommate from Brisbane. So it's always new to meet new family and old family. But so I came to the path similarly around 20 years ago almost. It's hard to believe. But I actually found the autobiography and I could barely get through it, surprisingly, because I am an avid reader. And I just had to put it down after the 10 pages. And I think that's when I found the new path, which was Swamiji's autobiography. And that was just like, oh my God, this is the way to live in America while being a yogi. And I was so happy to realize at the time that Swamiji would visit often back to California. And so I got to meet him and have satsangs, public satsangs with him, and have stuck with this ever since. And I was lucky enough, I was just at that point in my life where I'd started my new job in Silicon Valley. And so I had just moved to the Bay Area, and there I walk into the church with Asha and Shanti teaching right there in person. So I know Master had me in his palm throughout. And of course, there was this thing going on in the background because I grew up in Pune all my life, and Swamiji was moving to Pune to set up an ashram at the same year. And I'm like, what is happening? Where am I supposed to be? But soon it became quite clear that I had to be where I was, and I could still grow and learn. So I've been blessed in both places wherever I am, and like you said, Jonathan, these people in blue just have amazing energy. And so I jumped on this chance to be with Aditya in this book study, which he is such a busy person. We've talked about this in Pune for, I think, 3 years now, about a book study, but I can finally be in one with him now. So thank you. And I look forward to being in more of these satsangs with all of you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Urmila, Don, Satya, and everybody. And so maybe we'll close with a prayer and just 1 minute of meditation. But before that, I just wanted to ask a little detail. So, Urmila, you got the message probably from Pune team or somehow. And then I just want to know, is everybody in Australia getting the message about the book study, or is there anything else we need to do?
No, I
May
didn't
if you want me to, no, you go. Yeah.
Yeah, the message in Australia group, I saw the message, so it's go out. Urmila, I sent it Urmila the Zoom link, so she joined through me. And I know it. I think it was in New Zealand too. So
Got it.
that.
Sorry, somebody was calling. So Bhakti, also just to make sure that for our next week's class and all, everybody over here and last week's participants, everybody will get the message. No, you're all on the Australia
Yeah.
group then, friends?
Yeah. I will check with the Tulsi because she sent me today message. She was not able to join today, but yeah, I will check with Tulsi again and let you know.
And just for us to know, this is like a welcome group for anybody. So anytime you feel somebody wants to come and join, just feel free to send them the link and they can come. And I'm trying as much as I can to avoid creating another WhatsApp group. Your Zoom account is being signed in on another device, really? Deny.
No, that it's not about your. It's Ananda Pune account. I did it. It's okay. Everything good.
Okay.
So you were using Ananda Pune account.
Anyway, sorry, yeah, some messages that come on the screen. So anyway, so yeah, I was saying I'm trying to avoid to create another WhatsApp group or something for us all. So as long as communication is going out to everybody, that's what I wanted to verify.
Yeah, and if you remember, we wanted to only ask, is it okay with everyone if you share with video on YouTube? And that we wanted to ask each one, are you okay with that? Yeah. Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Okay, then let's take a minute to close our eyes. Think of Yogananda ji, Swamiji, all our masters. Let's thank them for their lives, for this beautiful book, Autobiography of a Yogi, for the spiritual family they have brought us all in, and especially for their unceasing presence in our lives. And let us pray that this guidance, day after day, bring us closer to God. And may the light of God and Gurus shine equally and brightly everywhere in this world. Let's rub our hands together. Sending these blessings out to everybody. Om Shanti. Peace. Amen. Thank you, everybody. And we will meet each other next week. For next week, our reading would be chapter 3, The Saint with Two Bodies. It's actually just a 5-page chapter. Oh, the next one is rather too long then. So yeah, let's keep it to chapter 3, The Saint with Two Bodies. God bless you. Have a beautiful week ahead and see you again. Jai Guru.
Thanks.
Thanks.